first thing I'm going to do is make this, get rid of the squares. So when you have x minus 2 squared, it's x minus 2 times x minus 2, and y plus 2 times y plus 2 equals 8. And when you FOIL that, you get x squared minus 4x plus 4 plus y squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 8. So I look at my formula sheet and I know that x squared plus y squared is on my formula sheet. Do you see it equals r squared? And so I'm going to pair those together and then pair the, oh, this is a y. That's a y over there, 4y. Minus 4x plus 4y plus 8 equals 8. And I see that there's an 8 on each side, so if I subtract 8 from each side, they go away. And I have x squared plus y squared minus 4x plus 4y equals 0.
Wait, how'd you get that?
So x squared plus y squared, I look at my formula sheet, and it's right here, equals r squared. And x is r cosine of theta, and y is r sine of theta. So I now got rid of all the x's and y's, which is the first step. Object of most formulas is to leave an r alone. So I'm going to leave the r squared alone. And I'm going to move these other guys to the other side of the equal sign. So now I notice I want an r alone, so I want to get rid of this square. But if I take that square away, I can take these two r's away. Because if I divide everything by r, that's what it turns into. So now I have r equals 4 cosine of theta minus 4 sine of theta. Did I get rid of the x's and y's? And did I leave the r alone? Yes and yes. So I see the 5 downstairs. I don't like that. I cross multiply, and I get 5y equals x squared. It just makes it easier for me to see that situation. So now I know that y is r sine of theta. I'm just converting. And x squared is r cosine of theta and r cosine of theta, because there's two of them, two x's. So this is going to be 5r sine of theta, and I'm doing extra, and it's cosine squared of theta. All right, so I want to leave that r squared alone because we want the r to be alone, and that's the biggest r, so you always leave the r squared if you have an r and an r squared. So I'm going to divide both sides by cosine squared of theta. Okay. So now I'm going to reverse the order here, and I'm going to say that r squared equals 5r sine of theta cosine squared of theta. I'm just leaving the r on the left side of the equation. Now if I divide both sides by r, I get r equals 5 sine of theta over cosine squared of theta. When you clean it up, you've got r equals 5, can't do anything with him. You've got a sine theta over cosine of theta, and you have a 1 over cosine of theta. I just subtract, left one cosine with the sine, which is 5 r equals tangent of theta secant of theta. That's the cleanest way to leave it. Very good. So we have r sine of theta equals r cosine of theta. We want the r's on one side, so I'm going to divide by r here and divide by sine here, right? And this is equal to 1 equals cotangent of theta. If you'd gone the other way, it would be 1 equals tangent of theta. Both of those answers are valid, because if I had divided by cosine of theta on both sides and r, it would have been 1 equals tangent of theta. So that is the answer. 1 equals cotangent or 1 equals tangent of theta. We have y equals x over 4, 4y equals x, 4r sine of theta equals r cosine of theta. And when I divide by r sine of theta, I get that 4 equals cotangent of theta. The r's bite the dust on both sides. So number 5 is just like number 4, but it has a 3 instead of a 4.
Psychometric.
All right, so here we have x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus y squared equals 9. And the 9's bite the dust. So you get x squared plus y squared minus 6x equals 0. And then that's going to be r squared minus 6r cosine of theta equals 0. Well, r squared equals 6r cosine of theta. When you move it across the equal sign, it turns to positive. We divide both sides by r, and we get r equals 6 cosine of theta. Okay, so r equals sine over cosine times 1 over cosine. Just change everything to cosine and sine. And then I move the cosine squares, the two cosines, over to the r. I cross multiply, so I have r cosine squared sine. Now I'm going to add an r here, and I'm going to add an r here. If I have r cosine of theta is x, r squared cosine squared of theta is x squared. And then r sine of theta is y. That is your final answer. Y equals x squared. So tangent is sine of theta over cosine of theta equals 2. Well, I clearly need r's in here. So if I put r over r, I don't have to put them on the other side of the equation. Because what is r over r? 1. So I'm really not changing the value of that left side, okay? So now I have y over x equals 2. And the best way to leave this is y equals 2x. So we get r equals 5 cosine over sine times 1 over sine. I've just converted the cotangent and cosecant to cosine over sine and 1 over sine.
How did the sign get
Then
left?
I just cross multiplied. So here, if we add an r to both sides, we get that this is x squared plus y squared equals 4x. All right, so we're going to move the x's together and put a plus box. And then the y's don't need a plus box because there's no plain y. So this equals 0. All I did was add the x's, to put the x's together and add a plus box on each. In order to find the plus box, you are finding a number that when you put it in the box, you can find the perfect square trinomial. How do you do that?
That's 16.
Just stop it.
You're killing me.
Yeah, I'm dying. So, negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2 squared. It's b divided by 2 squared, which is negative 4 divided by 2 squared, which is 4. So I add 4 to both sides. When I do that, I can factor this as x minus 2 squared plus y squared equals 4. That is my final answer. Don't talk. So we got r equals negative 4 cosine of theta minus 4 sine of theta. So I'm going to add a square here, add an r here, and add an r. Everybody gets an r. So that r squared turns into x squared plus y squared. And this turns into negative 4x minus 4y. We move everything to the left side of the equation. We get x squared plus 4x. Both of those are negative, yeah. Plus box plus y squared plus 4y plus box equals 0 plus box plus box. And it's the same box. 4 divided by 2 is 2, squared is 4. So all these are 4s. So now you have x plus 2 squared. That's how you factor that. Plus y plus 2 squared. That's how you factor that. Equals 8. And we're done. There's a square on the y plus 2 squared, yes.
So how do you know if there's